The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising by Reuben Einstein. The single greatest act of Jewish resistance during the war was the defense of the Warsaw Ghetto. The ghetto was the walled area of the city where Jews were confined. On April 19, 1943, German troops began to liquidate the ghetto. Resistance fighters held them off for 3 weeks. 18-year-old Jacob Smawoski, who fought to avenge the deaths of his mother and sister, wrote this account of the fighting. Portions of his diary are reprinted in The Warsaw Ghetto Revolt by Reuben Einstein. It must have been the 28th of April. In Marano Square, the Germans ordered captured Jews to take off all their clothes, then searched their clothes, took their money and gold, ordered them to dress, and marched them off. When night came, we attempted to reach the Aryan side, but when about 100 of us tried to get over the Muranosaka-Porcano wall, the Germans opened fire at us from where the poles had been removed. About 50 of our group were killed, and the survivors retreated. Later, the Germans made a breach in the wall where we had tried to escape and placed their 10 gendarmes armed with rifles who fired at every Jew attempting to get out. The following morning, Pika noticed 15 gendarmes come through the breach in the wall and make for our house, because during the previous night they had observed that we had been firing at them from it. Pika, in his SS uniform, advanced toward them and said in a loud voice, "Ja, ja, Herr sind Juden da." Yes, yes, there are Jews here. They saluted, and Pika led them into the courtyard to show them where the Jews were. We were on the ground floor, and when the gendarmes reached the middle of the courtyard, we opened fire and killed the 15 of them. Later, we raised over our corner house, number 42 Nowicki Street and number 17 Muranosaka Street, 2 flags, a red one and a white-blue one, to show that we were not giving up, that we were insurgents. Poles watched through binoculars how we fired at the Germans and Germans fired at us. Next to the flags on the 4th floor, we placed a bomb, which we concealed under rubble and stones so that those who attempted to take down the flags would be blown to pieces. We made the flags out of tablecloths. I sewed them together in our bunker. The Germans drove up in tanks. When they approached our house, we opened fire and withdrew to number 40 at Nowicki Street, and from there to number 38, where the bronze workshops were. And there we hid in the staircase of the 4th floor. That was our last chance. We reckoned that as soon as the Germans approached, we would open fire and withdraw. Should it prove impossible, we would shoot ourselves, for each of us kept his last bullet for himself. Some had cyanide for this purpose. A number of our lads withdrew to number 15 at Muranosaka Street. We saw the tank stop outside number 42, from where nobody fired at them. Behind the tanks came Germans and Ukrainians. The Ukrainians went up to the 4th floor and approached our flags. Suddenly, there was a terrific explosion. The wall collapsed and buried the invaders. The same night, we learned that a dozen more of them had been killed. The flags were fixed to a wall, and next to it we had dug a hole, so that in order to reach the flags, the Germans would be forced to step where the bomb was buried. And this is what happened. After our success, we moved to number 6 Wallowa Street, where we reached a boy who had fled from the bunker under number 42 Nowicki Street. He told us that the Germans had dragged out of the bunker more than 40 Jews and shot them in the courtyard. Several managed to escape through a back exit. They did it in retaliation for our flags. In our group was a lad whom we called the Yellow Melon. He proposed that we mine our gateway and kill the Germans who tried to come near us. We placed mines on both sides of the gateway, then we barricaded it, and then placed dynamite above it. As soon as the Germans approached, we lit the fuse. The mine exploded and killed the group of Germans. The explosion was so great that the gateway became impassable. The Action was then in its 2nd week. 2 weeks passed since the outbreak of the uprising, and the Germans had still not managed to get through. For us, it was a convenient defense position. For opposite us, there were also ruins. Unable to get at us through number 6 Wallowa Street, they tried through number 32 Swiatojerska Street. We let them come through there because we had placed a mine, and when their tank rolled over it, the tank and its crew were blown up. The Ukrainians then opened up. We retreated to number 6 Wallowa Street, but they succeeded in taking alive a number of our lads. Eventually, the resistance fighters were forced to leave the ghetto. Some escaped to the forests, where they continued to fight until the Red Army liberated Warsaw in January 1945. When the battle was over, 7,000 Jews had been killed in the fighting. 6,000 had been burned to death in their hideouts, and 56,000 were transported to the gas chambers in Treblinka. Perhaps the military significance of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising has been best summed up by Polish General Jerzy Kirchmeier, the historian of the Warsaw Uprising of 1944. The blows delivered by the Jewish fighters hurt badly the prestige of General Stroop's heroes, who, although armed to the teeth, were forced to bring in tanks, artillery, and planes against insurgents who were almost completely devoid of arms. The Warsaw Ghetto fell after a heroic fight, but the idea of armed struggle, in the name of which the insurgents had died, reached beyond the walls, survived, and endured until victory. Appeal of the Jewish Fighting Organization to the Polish population. Poles, citizens, soldiers of freedom. Through the din of German cannon destroying our homes, the homes of our mothers, wives, and children, through the noise of their machine guns seized by us in the fight against the German police and SS men, through the smoke of the fires and the blood of those murdered in the Warsaw Ghetto, we convey greetings to you. We are aware that you have been witnessing with anguish and tears of compassion, with amazement and breathless anticipation, the war we have been waging against the occupation forces during the past few days. But you can have seen and will see every doorstep in the ghetto becoming a stronghold and remaining a fortress until the end. All of us may perish in the fight, but we shall never surrender. We, as well as you, are burning with a desire to punish the enemy for all his crimes, with a desire for vengeance. It is a fight for our freedom as well as yours. It is a fight for our human dignity and social and national honor as well as yours. We shall take vengeance for Auschwitz, Treblinka, Bizek, and Majdanek. Long live the comradeship of arms and blood of fighting, Poland. Long live freedom. Death to the murderous and criminal occupation forces. Let us wage the life and death struggle against the German occupation forces until the very end. Jewish Fighting Organization, April 23, 1943. Using leaflets and flyers, Jewish fighters pleaded for help from Polish citizens outside the ghetto. However, few Poles were willing to resist the German troops.